Hey, everybody. Welcome back to our latest installment of MSP Business School. Today, I'm really excited to have with us Kevin Clune, who is the co-founder or is the founder of MSP Growth Hacks. And, he's really looking to educate the community more so than anybody else. So we're really excited to have Kevin here joining us today.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah, as always, in addition to Kevin, I've got my two wonderful co-hosts, Rob and Tim, with me here. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Doing very well, sir.
Yeah.
Doing very well. Digging out of the snow.
Yeah, I was going to say the four of us were just commiserating on the fact that we all got hit by that storm out here in the Northeast. Right. We're recording this on today's February 3rd.
Yeah.
And Kevin's still feeling the after effects of not being able to get out of the house. We're finally dug out here in Connecticut.
Yeah, I just can't get my kids out of the house, man. They just need to go to school. Get out. Can't get them out. I want to miss them fondly, and I can't.
Yeah, I'm not missing anybody these days, I'll tell you that. But with that said, Kevin, love to learn a little bit more about MSP Growth Hacks. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days?
Sure, yeah. So MSPGrowthHacks.com is a blog that I started after immediately exiting an MSP. Basically, I just sat there and I thought to myself, like, wow, we learned a lot through this process, and it would be great to just dump this information somewhere so that other people can benefit from it. And so that's really what it's turned into. We're basically just building and creating resources that we wish we had as MSPs. And so, I started that in 2019. Now we're a few years in. I wrote a book called the MSP Growth Funnel, which is available on Amazon. So that was like kind of our cornerstone resource throughout that process. It's really started as a collection of blog posts and really just kind of framed it out. And so our latest thing is the MSP Growth Guide. And so I know OSR was featured in that. That is really what I think was something that's really missing. Was there's all these great marketing and growth related resources, coaches, agencies, everything out there for these MSPs, but there was like no one central place to find all of that information.
Yeah, completely agree.
And to say, hey, let me look for a coach. Let me look for someone to do cold calling. Let me look for somebody to manage my pay-per-click ads, right? And so that was kind of something I partnered with Paul Green on, because he and I saw that, like, I had a US based customer or viewership. He had kind of UK and Europe, and it just made sense for us to partner so that we could really have it be like a global resource. And so that's really kind of the latest thing that we've been up to. We post right now about 2 articles on the site a week. It's myself, and I have 2 other actual like marketers that work for MSPs. Some are like the top in the country. They're actually like to give their input and resources well through articles. So it's great because it's, it's authentic. It's people that, know the business, know the industry, and they're in there like fighting fires every week, and they're sharing it with the community.
And that's a real key, right?
Cool.
Because
very cool.
As former MSP guys, and I fall in that category as well, as we start doing these other endeavors, it's very quick. You can get farther and farther away from what the ground, the feet on the ground and what's actually happening out there. So, to have some people that are contributing to you that are still fighting the fires, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I sensed that, like I sensed it, because I've been doing some coaching, but I felt like even that wasn't enough. And the second that I started to sense that, like, okay, I'm almost 2 years removed at this point, I need to level up and get some people in here to contribute that are like still active. And so we really tapped our community for that. So like some of our most engaged readers, we've essentially turned into content creators for us. And that's a model that we're just going to keep doing going forward.
And that makes sense, because it's really going to allow you to expand and I'm sure grow your business, but yet keep the control I'm sure you were looking for when you launched this. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to step back a minute to maybe the growth guide a little bit. I think that, I don't want to overlook that. I think one of the biggest challenges that I know I had as an MSP was not only trying to find the avenues for growth, but having somebody that has vet them out a little bit and gotten some experience too, because there's so many people out there bombarding our email boxes saying they can do this for us. So, maybe you can share a little bit about some of the steps that you took in order to compile this guide and really find the folks that you got.
Yeah. So, and it is tough because I couldn't have possibly used all of these services. So we really have to just act as a publisher and have it just be very objective, just information, without going too far into details about where these rank and all of that. So there is that too, is I didn't want it to be a competition. I just kind of wanted to almost celebrate what everybody's doing, make sure that the information is out there. And really what it comes down to is that there's a lot of MSPs that do their own marketing. They don't, they let it kind of bog them down.
Mm-hmm.
And they just get to the point, they should be outsourcing a lot of things. Right. And so from talking to MSPs and doing coaching, and I do a lot of free coaching sessions that just to stay in touch. I always am pushy about it because I'm these are so many resources for you that, this isn't actually a problem, right? So you're just letting it kind of become your problem when it doesn't need to be. And so, that is really what it was about, is showing a lot of these MSPs that there's number one, there's options out there. Here's one central place for you to find them. And number two is that you shouldn't just get one opinion. Don't wait to be pitched something and then just assume okay, this person's trying to sell me this, I'm going to go for it. Now that's my marketing plan.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You need to have a plan going in. You need to determine what your budget is and then find a combination of vendors that will suit it. Right. Not just kind of wait around and wait, like I said, to be pitched and say, okay, I'm going with this quarter, and then I'm going to jump off to something else next quarter. Right.
Well, I think that happens so often, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you've seen it. We've seen it. You talk to there's a segment of MSPs that they'll go from campaign to campaign or company to company every 6 to 9 months. And, that's, so often when we're talking to either prospects or clients that are signing up with us, they're asking us who we recommend as far as marketing and things of that nature. And honestly, I can honestly say I've already directed them to your website a couple times, a few people.
It just makes sense.
It does,
right?
Just over the last 6 weeks.
How can you not?
Yeah.
And I think to everyone's credit, I think the reason it didn't exist is because there was no one that could really make it worth it for them to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I because Paul's a little far into offering services, and when I brought this up to him, his first reaction was wait a minute, what? We're gonna publish all of these people's all of these competitors? And I'm yeah, because that's what's actually best for the MSP, to just have it all in one place. So I think that there's a lot more room for us to be a little bit of a middle ground for a lot of the stuff that's going on, that's, sales, marketing, growth related in the industry. And because now we can approach it that way, we can become that one platform just for that sort of category within MSP. And I think it will benefit not only the MSPs, but also the vendors, like yourselves.
Well, I think the other thing it can and probably will end up doing is it may get some of these vendors to start talking to each other a bit more. I know, when Rob and I, when we started OSR, we were really a lead gen company. One of our biggest competitors was Managed Sales Pros, but we got to know Carrie. We used to talk with her all the time. There's 50,000 MSPs in North America. There's plenty of room for these companies to play and, bounce some ideas off of each other and not have to worry about sharing these crazy secrets.
Right.
I think what you're hitting on is that mindset challenge, right? Some people have that mindset of scarcity and some people have that mindset of abundance, right?
Yeah.
It's better to promote the greater good and that this is what the whole category can do for us. And by proxy, if people believe that it can help their businesses, some of that's going to trickle down to my funnel too, right? So good stuff.
I mean, I think one of the things that, you know, MSPs really struggle with is the where to start phenomenon, right? They're so scared of starting in the wrong place that they just don't start at all. And then they just start wasting money. They go down to IT Nation, they see the best, you know, booth there, and then boom, that's what they're doing. But you know, Kevin, you've been doing this for a long time, and you've seen a lot of different ways to do this. If you're a smaller MSP, you broke that 1 million mark, and you're trying to get out of that, your referrals, and you know, get out of that, you know, all that just leads coming in, and you're trying to get leads going out. Where should people be starting their marketing or sales journey? Like when they just have a small budget and they got to do something. And what would you recommend that they do? Not a client, but you know, what should they be doing, focusing on?
I think first and foremost, there is a lot of like, and especially now, there's a lot of MDF available that, so you don't even have to tap your own budget. I mean, that's, you know, you should be trying to hit that first. Every MSP has a stack of relationships. And if they don't know exactly what each one of their vendors is offering and how they can take advantage of it, then that's number one is an obvious, you know, obviously misstep. And the sooner you do that, the better. Because you'll find like some of them even offer like $3,000 a quarter that can go. I mean, to a small MSP, that is substantial, right? And you know, in some cases, it's like hosting a webinar, and then you can use some of that money to generate interest, right? And then to get, you know, I've seen some MSPs recently that are getting hundreds of people on a webinar, right? And normally it's like you have some kind of incentive, like a free lunch gift card or something that your partner will pay for. So the event as part of the MDF. But then what you're left with after that is now a list of like 100 people that you can start to nurture and email. And, you know, you can really start to be active in marketing. And you don't even need, you know, from there, it's just like a MailChimp subscription and, you know, like the will to do it, the will to create some content and email your audience each week. So I think, you know, that's where I would start is like, you know, forget about spending the money, like what's available to me immediately. And then from there, obviously, just continue to follow that vein of like, what's engaging and like, how can you build more trust with the audience that you have? So, you know, we do that through content. I think everybody's really trying to do that through content right now. So that's an obvious first step is that if you can just get a consistent message out there that allows you to build more trust with like the audience that you do have, no matter how big or small, you're going to see more leads come in through the pipeline. Not only is there going to be more of them, but now they're going to trust you more than they did before, right? And so it's at some point it becomes just kind of like taking orders. It's not like getting, you know, paying $100 a click on Google ads to get somebody that really has no interest and might not even call you back. And so like, you know, that's the difference. And I think there's a misconception that it's expensive to do that. And I think it's not. I think it's just a matter of like, stop the short-term thinking. You know, like Google ads is very like, oh, I pay this amount, I get this click, I convert this many of them. And then, but like the longer you think like that, you just get stuck. You get stuck serving the bottom of the funnel when you should have taken a step back and say, okay, I'm not going to convert anybody right now, but I'm going to just do this continuously for a long period of time. And then I'm going to benefit from it later.
Yeah, that's right. It's do you believe it's a marathon or do you believe it's a sprint? And if you believe it's a marathon, take the actions that are going to serve you best. So, you know, Kevin, kind of segueing in a little bit into, you know, what you're doing today, you know, one of the things that we like to talk about here is kind of those turning point moments in our careers. And what are the things that really, you know, whether good or bad, really help propel us to where we sit today. So, you know, maybe you want to talk about one of those milestone events in your career, whether it was when you were MSP or today as MSP Growth Hacks, and kind of tell us, you know, how you faced it and what it did for you.
Sure. Yeah, I saw this on the The email. And I actually thought it was really interesting. It made me think about something I never really thought about before. And because I was thinking, one of the big kind of like pivot points for our MSP was when we started to wiggle into like this unique vertical. It was actually the co-working industry. It's a devastating industry to be in right now. But at the time, it was red hot,
Yeah.
And so we were actually servicing these clients in New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And so, in Manhattan, it was like there was nothing hotter, right? And so what we were able to do was basically like make relationships with these vendors that were servicing that industry specifically. There was a phone provider, there was like an access control company, there was that vertical kind of had their own stack. There was like CRMs, there was, you name it. There was a vertical specific product or service for it. And so it made us, so we kind of got in through, by accident, really, just a customer we happened to pick up. They had one of these vendors, they had multiple of them that we were able to make relationships with. Then we started getting referrals from all of them because we found that there was really no central kind of entity to help the end customer have success across the entire stack, right? So what that really, I think, taught us was that like the relationship with our customers is not like a closed loop, right? It's not just one way. It's more of like a web. And I think once we started to realize that like, our customers, they have these vendors and each of those vendors has connections between them. And the more you can branch out into this web beyond that exists, like beyond your, actual customer, the more you can actually just build momentum and you can get referrals from people that obviously you're not even transacting with, right? Yeah. And so that I think was pivotal because we started to do that in other ways. Another example, we had like a salon that we helped to like virtualize their setup. We put them on thin clients and had this like legacy software. I forget the name of it, but we kind of caught the attention of that software provider. We made sure that we were kind of like working thoroughly and diligently with them throughout the process. And then that software provider like started just feeding us new customers to do the same thing because we were making it easier for them, right? And so it was just up to us at that point to take these opportunities and really make a business out of it that was scalable and that wasn't just kind of, because it can be easy to just kind of stack opportunities together, call it a business when it's really not. So from that point, you just have to be very tactful about like what you choose to take, what does it fit what you're doing in the direction that you're going, but obviously not just having these blinders on as you kind of like service your customer.
And I think, you touched upon a couple of things with that story. First one is that old statement, your net worth is your network, right? So the more you get to know those people and really see where they lead you and you engage with them, it's huge. And I think that's an interesting concept in itself because we see one of the biggest challenges is some of these technical founded MSPs getting out of the box and really exploring those relationships to the full level, right?
Yeah, totally.
And then not to lose sight of that one, but the second thing that you brought up that we should probably drill a little bit deeper is the allies you make, right? You talked about the salon and the software. The reality is you answered a pay point for the software company, which is every time they did one of these, it was a one-off with a different vendor who didn't know their product, who they basically had to teach and knew there was going to be no residual benefit after the fact. So, sometimes we overlook those awesome lead sources, if you will, by just not engaging appropriately. So I don't know if you want to expand on either one of those, in terms of your feeling as far as the MSP community and networking and engaging outside their own four walls, right? We all love to talk to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think that really just stop thinking of your customers as the only source of referrals. If anything, like that should be your last, because you don't want to tax them more, right? Yeah. Like that should be your last source of referrals. I think there's so much value you can provide that everyone else that's in the ecosystem around them that would almost be more willing and likely and would be able to refer you at a higher volume, right? So it makes sense.
Completely. Absolutely. I mean, geez, back when we were in the MSP, God, we would, so Rob and I didn't own the MSP that we were at. We worked at one in the Hartford, Connecticut area. And I can tell you, we had some really good relationships with some of the vendors that we worked with back then. And that was, um, not a huge source of referrals for us, but I can see how it could have been if we had worked it differently, though.
I've
100%.
never considered going outside of the vendor network that was attached to the MSP. Never. Like your VoIP phones and your Dell reps and all that kind of stuff. Like imagine if we would have called up LexisNexis or one of those types
Yeah.
of it just never even occurred to
Yeah.
me.
And that's the thing, like legal, like you mentioned LexisNexis, like imagine the legal vertical. There's
Yeah.
so much
Oh, yeah.
specialization in there. You have marketing companies, you have case management software, you have all of these. And the MSP interacts with all of them, but they interact on the help desk. So you need somebody that's in business development, that's in there, nurturing these relationships.
Yeah.
Every time you onboard an MSP, you should be asking for your account rep at these other companies and then connect with them on LinkedIn, right? And then start a conversation like, hey, how can I help you satisfy that customer that is now mutual better? And I think if you do that, and I'm not saying that we did that every time either. I'm not, this is like mainly hindsight, right?
Yep.
But for sure, that is a great start to if you really want to like do this with intent.
And right now with COVID, you've got to find so many different creative ways to, break in. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough right now. And that's just one more way to break you out of the white noise. It's a really smart idea.
Yeah.
You're spot on with how it's difficult now, right? I used to dangle lunch all the time. I can't take anybody to lunch now, and it certainly makes it a little bit more difficult, right? But it's all about engagement. And, I think you just lived up to your billing right there. If you talk about an MSP growth hack, there's one, right?
Yeah.
Go out there and start thinking wider. Awesome. So, Kevin, do you got any initiatives in terms of, events or things that you're planning, around your MSP growth community that people can tap into in the next quarter that we can share before we head into the speed round?
No, I mean, just right now, like I said, the biggest thing is the MSP growth guide. We do have a few other like major resources like that are lined up. So if you hop over to our site or either grab the growth guide or just sign up for our weekly hacks newsletter. The next one that we're launching is actually, I've had somebody researching for like 2 months to compile all of these statistics that are out there that are really useful for MSPs to like use as marketing tools and sales tools. But they're spread out over like all these different reports and blog posts and this and that. And so I've had somebody compiling all of these. We've got like between 500 and 1,000 of them that have been published between 2018 and now. And so we're going to publish those in like one really easy to digest reference guide so that like, hey, you need some kind of stat on phishing. Here's 25 of them, and then kind of separating it by category.
Kevin, if you can get that out,
Very
that is
cool.
a huge, immense benefit to almost anybody. I know in my seat, I'm just about to hire a researcher to do that outsource. So if you're telling me that I could potentially just wait a month, save some money and get a book, woohoo, baby. Now you're talking.
Tim, think of all of our reps that are struggling making that fourth call and trying to talk to somebody with some, extra content. And now they have a resource that they can go to. That's
So
that's not bad, Kevin.
I guess that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, so for our listeners, if you haven't found some value today, we should just wrap this up and not do this podcast anymore. If you haven't found at least one tactic to grow your business, we've definitely got to give it up here. Awesome. So Tim, you want to take us home with some questions?
Yeah. So look, every podcast we've got 5 questions. We just call them the speed round, super fast. So I'll just start going through and just answer whatever comes to mind, basically.
Sure.
First one is text, talk, or Teams.
It's funny. I'm actually like an email guy. So I don't do Teams. I'm like, I'm not adverse to it, but I'm basically my whole business is built through Zoom. So like when I do consulting and coaching and stuff like that,
That's fair.
I literally do not a single person within my scope of like work now has my cell phone number. So I text like
Congratulations.
friends and
Wow.
family. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well done, sir.
Yeah,
Well
I
done.
know.
Something that I've really like tried hard to
hold
do.
hold on to that.
Yeah.
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 So like, while it's not exactly efficient, like I do everything by email. And
Yeah, hey man,
it's-
that's fair.
That's
That's
fair.
cool. Very good. Okay, music, movies, or TV?
music.
Okay.
Yeah. For
What
sure.
age do you want to retire?
I won't. I'm just not, I'm of that mindset. I just don't know. I'll always have to do something. So, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
infinite.
Yeah, the most
That's
common,
the
the
norm.
most common answer we get
Yeah.
too.
Every
So,
time.
Yeah.
Yep.
driven people don't want to sit down, right?
Yeah. Entrepreneurs, right? They're always entrepreneuring something.
Mac or Windows?
Windows.
Okay. And if you could do anything outside of just the tech field, what would it be?
I'd probably lose my shirt, but I'd probably open a restaurant. Like I don't,
Yeah.
just one of those. I love to eat. I love, food. So,
What
I
kind?
wouldn't. It's what's that?
What kind of restaurant?
I don't know. I probably like something very simple.
Yeah.
Like where we serve like one thing, but it's different every day. Like, that kind of
Yeah.
thing where it's like within, one type of sandwich or something like that. And then come up with a new one every day just to get people coming back. But yeah, I don't,
That's
I would
cool.
not, that's one of those things where like, we'll put that with the retirement question. Cause like, that's something it's like when I have enough money where I can lose all of it, like, I'll do something like that.
Fair enough.
I can
Fair enough.
appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, Kevin, this was amazing. This was an amazing one,
Yeah.
right? This was a good one. I really want to thank you for joining us today. It was awesome having you on here. And for anyone who is looking to get in touch with Kevin, we're going to have his LinkedIn profile with the podcast, and I highly encourage you to go to his website, bookmark that thing, because it's definitely going to be something where people are going to need to go. And also, this episode will be on MSP School. MSPBusinessSchool.com and anywhere you get your podcast, to include YouTube. Kevin, before we go, do you have any other pearls of wisdom? I don't know how you're going to top what you've already done, but anything else before we part ways here, sir?
That's basically it. I would just say that, if growth is really your challenge, there is a ton of resources, and not just ours, that are out there that exist. Vendors are creating content at accelerated speeds, right? And so mind share has never been at its higher point. And so there's a lot of people that kind of are outside of the bubble, and they don't need to be. I think if you can just stop, kind of working in a vacuum and start to tap into your vendors and all the other, sites and media entities that are out there creating content that are, helpful and engaging, like you should definitely do that.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So,
Thank you so
I
much for
guess the
joining
recap
us.
for this call would
Yeah.
be definitely chase after MDF funds and definitely target vendors, account reps, right? To build outside of your network. So, and with that, as always, thank you very much, guys, and we'll be
Thank
talking
you.
soon.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.